Hello and welcome to A Grain of Sanderson, a podcast where we are foolishly attempting to read all of Brandon Sanderson's works in publication order. I am joined by Taylor Lane.
Hello.
Jack McLaughlan.
Hello.
And writer, comedian, friend of the show, Sophie Abromowitz.
My QIP has returned to my body. I have awoken in a chamber and I am ready to podcast. I have the skills of 10,000 cycles of podcasting accumulated in my quantum fingerprint.
Her rebirthing chamber was buried in a Nevada desert, and that's why it took so long to get her back.
I can only be killed by one of two swords.
And then weirdly a third right there at the end.
I thought the implication was that the Worker of Secrets just had a closet somewhere full of like dozens of the things.
Well, as the person who did find a way to play a little bit of Infinity Blade 3, the Worker is just making more Infinity Blades, and in the third game they fully don't. They're no longer just blades. So Issa gets the Infinity Daggers, and Cyrus gets the Infinity Spear, but the Worker of Secrets also has, for some reason, the Infinity Cleaver. It's like,
I mean, we'll get to it, but the whole thing, there's a scene later on where the God King is being very, like, of the genre, like, very talking big and grand and about prophecy and stuff. Meanwhile, the Worker, who is basically still just a guy from the modern era, is like, yeah, of course I have more Infinity Blades. I invented one. Why can't I just make more? It's not some weird magical prophecy thing where it's like can only be one. It's a piece of technology. I just made more.
Yeah.
There is something funny there about just like meta to the fantasy genre of just like proper noun inflation. Like at a certain point there are so many proper nouns that none of them have any like narrative heft or weight anymore.
Yeah, especially with, like, the stuff in the before times, where it's just like, alright, none of this is gonna matter.
Right.
We do learn from that the God King played hockey.
The God King, yeah.
That's important.
Regional hockey champ, the God King.
That's right. Growing up in near pre-apocalyptic Boston, presumably.
The God King was on his way back from hockey practice, got hit by a car, and then brought to a facility where he was turned immortal.
And that sounds like a shitpost that we're making up. No, that is canonically what happens in this book.
That means his like last memory as a mortal person was like playing Little League hockey.
Yep. Fully.
That was his last memory like as a mortal.
Oh
the God King has been training his slap shots for 10,000 years. His form is perfect. He can skate backwards.
Probably do the summary so we can actually...
Yeah, let's all do our one-sentence summaries. My one-sentence summary is, I was not expecting this book to have the plot of the Naked Gun remake that came out last month, but like,
Anyway.
No, shockingly similar. Both of these properties are about people like creating bunkers to remake the world in their own image afterwards.
Listen, it's the Dave theory of Sanderson. We got that from Kirk Hamilton.
Yeah, absolutely. Apparently, Sanderson has gone into the future by approximately 13 years and watched the Naked Gun sequel and used that for his 2013 novella. Who else has a one-sentence summary?
Mine makes a lot more sense now that we kind of explained about the dad, but I said all of this for some daddy issues.
Yeah. We can't escape them.
He has some deep daddy issues. Becoming a God King for that. Because his dad was like, do it.
I guess my one sentence is, all this happened because a kid was role-playing being king.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, just king things. My one sentence in summary is immortal cockboy makes good.
Yeah. I cannot. We'll get there, but like the infidelity scene is one of the most insane things I've read with Sanderson.
It is also, I have to say, very similar to the opening infidelity scene of Coen Brothers' malign comedy Intolerable, Cruelty.
That's one of the Coens I haven't seen.
It is very funny. It is a nasty little movie, but it opens with an infidelity scene that is basically this beat for beat, including the like flashy red convertible. No kids get annihilated, but
that's the most important part.
Yeah, right. And that's a good reminder, is that's who's really hurt when parents cheat, is the children.
By a car, hitting them at high speed on their way back from hockey practice.
Yeah, kid gets blasted by Lightning McQueen, and
and then your forensic accountant husband beats your lover to death with a pipe.
the wrench that you keep on your passenger seat to tune up your muscle car with.
Again, it sounds like we're making shit up.
Anyway.
And if you listened to the last Infinity Blade episode, or just hear the words Infinity Blade, you might be thinking, that sounds like a fantasy setting. And you would be right. And yet...
we want to...
The God King's dad beats a dude to death with a pipe in this book.
In the street, in the damn street.
Of Boston.
Of presumably of Boston. One of the Kirby streets of Boston.
Yeah.
Oh my god. All right, we have to get into the normal summary.
I will deliver the summary in 1 second, but having grown up in the suburbs of Boston, we did have to, for driver's ed, watch a video that you would hear about from the older kids, the crossbow video, which was a news report about a road rage incident where someone got a crossbow out of their trunk and shot another guy. And I feel like that's basically what happened in this book.
Has anyone on this call seen the Milwaukee police training video, Surviving Edged Weapons?
Yes.
Surviving Edged Weapons is incredible. It is truly an incredible action film, but it's a police training video where, like, they'll do these, like, recreations of action movie scenes, and then they'll cut to documentary footage explaining how you defend yourself against this as a police officer.
An hour 37 minutes.
Yeah, it's incredible.
I thought you meant like a little video, not an actual movie.
No, like I think about all the time. There's a dolly shot in that movie that is better than anything in Lethal Weapon.
Yeah, they teach you that when a slash is coming, you can either tap on the screen to block, you can slash in the same direction to deflect, you can dodge, and then once you break your enemy's guard, you slash to take off some of their health.
It's all about perfect parry.
It's all about the perfect parry.
And once you take damage, you can age yourself to heal.
That's right, but you need to keep nail clippers on hand, or else alter your genetics so that your nails don't grow. All cops know this stuff in Milwaukee.
It's true. All right.
Previously in Infinity Blade, Cyrus is a master swordsman from a line of warriors trained from birth to defeat Radriard, the God King, cruel ruler of this vague fantasy setting, one of the immortal Deathless, and wielder of the Infinity Blade, the only weapon that can permanently death the Deathless. Cyrus actually does the damn thing and defeats the God King, but has to figure out what to do with the Infinity Blade, which makes him and his shitty cave hometown a target for all kinds of freaks. He goes in search of the Worker of Secrets, who made the Infinity Blade, to give it back to him. He's joined by Issa, a flinty, sexy foreign mercenary who hates Deathless, and whose bit is that she says the wrong word for things sometimes, and Tel, a little robotic freak. It turns out that the God King is still alive, and also that Cyrus is actually one of the Deathless named Ausar the Vile, and that all of his ancestors have actually been him reborn as a child with his memories wiped. In between that novella and this one, Cyrus redefeats the God King and swaps him into the Worker of Secrets energy prison, only to be trapped there himself, too, since his vile ass was the one who trapped the Worker in there for 1,000 years in the first place. Also, there's computers and stuff like that, because it's actually the far future. This time on Infinity Blade, the novella jumps back and forth between the present and the past, before the world's genre changed from techno-thriller to dying Earth sci-fi fantasy. In the present, Cyrus and Radzigor the God King kill each other back and forth over and over, their immortal bodies regenerating each time. Cyrus's dark self, the vile part of him who read some Machiavelli, gets steadily stronger with each death, helping him to fight Nasty. After 1,500 deaths, Radzigor tries to chat with Cyrus, but the dark self takes over and he kills him again. Finally, 2 years later, Issa shows up with some guys to swap into the prison to free Cyrus. Radzigor steals her knife and slits his own throat to escape, his soul now free to jump into a new body back in his palace. It turns out the Worker of Secrets has installed a soulless copy of the God King in Radzigor's absence and turned his followers to try to poison and capture him once he reawakens. Radzigor fights his way out of the palace, freeing the devoted who remain loyal to him and defeating the gaping dragon from Dark Souls. He discovers that the Worker has thrown his empire into chaos rather than ruling it, but he doesn't know why, and that terrifies him. Meanwhile, Issa reveals to Cyrus that she's been organizing a rebellion against the God King in his name, like Mistborn, going around telling stories about his exploits and lying about how cool he is. Cyrus doesn't know anything about being a leader, but he realizes the Dark Self is actually really good at it and lets it do its thing, which mostly amounts to chatting with folks. Tell shows back up, and it's inconsequential. Cyrus struggles with how strong his dark self is getting inside him, so he eats pie and plays tag with some kids to blow off steam. While looking through intelligence on the Worker, Cyrus identifies a secret facility he really wants to raid, so he and Issa raid it. The facility has a rebirthing chamber for Deathless, but more importantly, a pinnacle of sanctification, the most important proper noun of all, the technology to turn people into immortal Deathless. It turns out Radzigor snuck into their raid crew, and he reveals to Issa that Cyrus wants to make her a Deathless. Cyrus and the God King form an uneasy alliance to take down the Worker of Secrets, with Radzigor promising to be a kinder, gentler God King from here on out. He really likes being a king, and Cyrus has to hand it to him for his earnestly felt noblesse oblige. While Cyrus goes off to confront the fake God King, Issa decides to deathlessify herself so that it's her choice and not Cyrus's. It's great, she loves it, and there's no negative consequences. Cyrus returns to the God King's stronghold from Infinity Blade 1 to find a soulless clone who's gone cuckoo bananas Looney Tunes, snacking on fingers and hollering about how the whole world is a copy and that the Worker of Secrets is playing solitaire while everyone else plays chess. Cyrus returns to the rebellion's stronghold, only to find that the Worker has bombed the hell out of it from orbit. Remember when I said that half the novel is set in the past? That's been happening this whole time. In the past, which is our near future, a nerd named Uriel with cartoon autism works as an analyst for Mr. Gallant, a tech mogul who's sort of a mix of Jeff Bezos, Hank Scorpio, and the architect from The Matrix. Uriel is always working late. He loves numbers, but is confused by people and their behavior and is taunted for it by his work rival Adram, a hotshot executive who drives a cool car. They're rolling out Project Omega, which is real actual teleportation, but Uriel doesn't think it's so hot an idea. He loves his wife Mary and his son Jory and doesn't want him to grow up in a world full of war and strife, and thinks Project Omega will end up being used by militaries to do Metal Gear stuff. At the big meeting, capital B, capital M, Uriel speaks up to Mr. Gallant about the dangers of the military applications of teleportation. Gallant is actually really into that and decides that they'll send Project Omega to world governments, which I guess not occurred to him before. He also invites Adram to be part of a secret immortality project, which Uriel has found out about by looking at people's GCals. It also involves bunkers and a moon base, because Mr. Gallant is in fact a black-pilled techno-fascist accelerationist. Sad and confused, Uriel realizes what's important is family, and for once goes home to surprise his wife and son instead of working late, only to find Adram's poncy red muscle car in his driveway, where he's parked to fuck Uriel's wife like he does all the time. Adram runs away and immediately smashes his car into Uriel's son. After pressing X to Jory a few times, Uriel kills Adram with a wrench, and then books it back to work to convince Mr. Gallant to resurrect his dead son. He tells Jory to be a king, gives him his watch, and then fucks off forever, leaving his immortal son in a bunker with his boss to rule over the new fantasy world that they'll create. Giri grows up to be Radriar the God King. Back in the present, Cyrus gives him the Infinity Blade to go fight the Worker, but not before secretly attaching a teleportation ring to it so he can betray him during the fight. The Worker is revealed to be the immortal CEO, Mr. Galanth, and he taunts Radriar about how into the whole fantasy LARPing thing he has gotten, and makes him fight another Deathless, who used to be his father's co-worker Jared, wielding a second Infinity Blade. Cyrus is overwhelmed by the Dark Self and tries to teleport Radriar's sword away, but Radriar saw it coming and removed the tele-ring. He ruefully has to hand it to Cyrus for being such a messy bitch. The Worker reveals that he's going to nuke the whole planet from orbit and start over, maybe in a new genre like detective or boys' adventure. Radriar realizes that Cyrus is an unpredictable glitch in the Worker's perfect planning, the one, if you will, and steals the Worker's USB drive labeled plans to teleport away to Cyrus, sacrificing himself at the end of the Worker's Infinity Blade in the process. Cyrus is forced to hand it to him that Giri died heroically, a true king, allowing him to finally squash his dark self the way you would squash a rat, its purpose completed. The book ends with a reminder that the guys who made Infinity Blade were named Donald and Jeremy Mustard, which I'd forgotten.
We need to do guest summaries more often.
Oh my god. Thank you, Sophie. I'm so glad we had you on.
Yeah, that's what happened.
I hope
it's true.
I hope
that is what happened.
I hope listeners now understand what Graham and I were saying at the start about how this is a bad book, but we had so much fun reading it anyway. Like, there's so much to talk
There's
about.
so much here. There's so much here.
Briefly, most of this book is original and does not get adapted by either Infinity Blade, except the latter third of the book is about the first third of Infinity Blade 3. So we get to see Radriar die, and that's sort of like the beginning that really kicks you off, and then you can play as either Cyrus or Issa.
Do you play as
I just
Radriar?
Yes, play as him briefly.
Okay. And you fight Jared?
You do fight Jared.
The immortal Jared?
I don't actually remember if he
His
gets
ancient
referred
name.
to as Jared.
Jared.
Oh, what a line. Ashimar, Radriar said, using the being's deathless name. Once this creature had been known by another name, however, an ancient name, Jared.
This might factor into later discussion. I'm not sure though. But I just want to point out, just really fucking funny. You mentioned that like the God King eventually agrees to be like kind and like a nice ruler and stuff, and that's how he kind of takes the wind out of Issa's sails of her rebellion, being like, yeah, good luck having a rebellion when I'm a benevolent king granting a golden age to everybody. But when he explains it, he's just like, yeah, I needed to charge the Infinity Blade, and that can only happen when people had the sacrifice tradition. And now that it's happened, I don't need to be a despot anymore. I was only a despot so that people would send a sacrifice to me. And now I don't need that anymore. So I guess I'm a good king now.
It's a little bit of like a God Emperor of Dune Golden Path stuff, where he's like,
Yeah.
I need to suppress all of humanity for humanity's good, and then there will be a flourishing. Once my worm body is dead in water.
There's so much bizarre stuff here, and it's such a pastiche of so many different books that it's sort of hard to like just pick one out. The other thing that I really admire is Sanderson completely gives up on having a consistent character for anyone. Cyrus is a completely different dude. Radriar is a completely different dude. Issa has like not enough lines to really determine whether or not she's the same character as before. That little robot guy, he's consistent though. He's still the same dude.
I was thinking that. Like, I did feel like I was reading a different set of characters. I kept trying to think back. Like, I kept having to remind myself, wait, what was Sirius's characterization in the last book? Because I feel like I wasn't learning that through this book.
Yeah.
I mean, I think part of the weirdness of this book's existence, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that Infinity Blade 1 comes out, and then they bring Brandon Sanderson in to write a bridge novella between the first game and the second game, and then like write the lore for the second game, and then write this bridge novella between the second and third game. So to a certain extent, like, who these characters are gets processed through the second game.
Yes.
And then sort of, like, reintegrated into this novella. So, I don't know, maybe there's some of the, like, ludonarrative dissonance playing out in this novella. But also there's a weird thing going on where, like, everyone has, like, multiple selves inside of themselves that are being, like, shuffled around and compartmentalized. And so, kind of, like, none of these characters are themselves because they are actually, like, multiple different selves.
Yeah, I mean, like, there is a textual reason for it, but it's kind of wild. The other thing, a lot of it gets filtered through Infinity Blade 2, because that has to happen. And one of the really sort of fascinating things about both Infinity Blade 2 and 3, which I did not finish 3, but I did manage to finish 2, is you can actually kind of see the moment that they ran out of Sanderson script, because basically the novellas get adapted into, like, the first third of both games both times. What happens is immediately the dialogue gets worse. There's just a line, which it's impressive to say that, like, the dialogue gets worse after Sanderson, but, like, you know, as video games in 2010, 2013, the dialogue was not outstanding. And a lot of it is, like, quite cringeworthy. So you can sort of see this line where they clearly did not have a writing team. Because I believe it was just the Mustards, who are primarily game developers, who were doing the writing apart from Sanderson.
They had Mustard on the track. Yeah.
I'm kind of curious, though, because I did realize that we still don't, I guess if you just read these books, we still don't even know what the deal with Ossur is, like, at all.
No.
Like, who he was. Does that come out in the books? Or not the books, the games? Like, do you
like
know
who
what
he was?
Yeah, like who he was and what's
No.
going on with him? No? So
Yeah.
we just know that there's this guy who, it was called Ossur the Vile, and, like, a horrible, horrible person that then, like, made himself into a good person by wiping his memories.
I feel like the vile part of that is doing all the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
You do get his armor set.
Yeah, it's a cool armor set.
And you learn that he, like, trapped the Worker of Secrets in the whatever of tears for 1,000 years.
I want to talk about the Worker of Secrets for a second. And
Yeah,
how he is
thank you.
the most uninteresting villain I think I have read in a long time.
Disagree, I liked him.
No, okay, here's the thing. The book keeps telling us repeatedly that the Worker is so brilliant, so smart. We keep, like, the entire plot of this book, they're all so worried about how the Worker has been pulling all the strings. Oh God, what's he planning? What's he doing? There was this huge buildup to him being this, like, brilliant person that's, like, playing all these strings. And you know what his plan was? Just send some bombers after the rebellion, like, just some normal ass, like, just bomb the rebellion and then hang out in a bunker and, like, turn on your big destroy the world, like, satellites.
Hold on, it's a
To,
moon
like, do
bunker, Jack. You gotta acknowledge it's a moon bunker.
It's a moon and it's like we keep being told he's really smart, but, like, the only time we actually see him be smart is, like, he's a brilliant inventor, clearly, but that doesn't make you like a tactical mastermind. And, like, he's able to finish the God King sentences a few times, and then he keeps being wrong.
He does the, like, Joseph Joestar thing where he's like, the next thing you'll say is, I am your, like, bane.
The whole thing is that he's basically, you know, he's supposed to be this brilliant, super smart, 500 IQ guy, and he's had thousands of years with these death lists, so he, like, knows them inside and out. He knows exactly what they're going to do. He's not, like, I think it's supposed to be a twist where it's like he's not actually spying on them. He just knows them so well that he knows exactly what they're going to do.
I mean, he at one point says the line of, like, I know what narrative archetype you are, and then follows it up by saying, that's encoded in your DNA somehow.
I personally have a pet peeve with the archetype of a villain that, like, they're a genius because they're some crazy inventor, and that obviously means they're a genius in everything else too. It's like, that's not how it works. The guy invented teleportation. That doesn't mean he's a Machiavellian mastermind.
So I did have a question about that, because there is a line where he says, "I know everything, Jory. When you were but a child, I had already lived 10,000 lives." Is the implication there that, like, in the past, he is already immortal, or is some kind of, like, exo being? Or is he just a CEO?
I'm wondering about that too, because there's the thing where, for some reason, the God King, like, starts wearing an Anubis helmet, just, like, halfway through this book.
He starts hollering about the Anubis, yeah.
Yeah, and he talks about the jackal being a symbol of ancient Egyptian gods when he was still a youth. In that moment, he wonders, like, this pantheon seems so similar to that of our Deathless. Is that pantheon related? He's like, no, quantum, QIP was invented in our lifetime, so it can't be. And then we hear the Worker of Secrets say that, and then it's like, oh, is the implication he was actually, like, an ancient Egyptian god? At some point.
I think the implication is his head's just really far up his own ass. I genuinely think that's the implication.
But I wasn't sure whether, like, he was, had access to this, like, incredible technology because he is secretly some, like, immortal being.
I think possibly.
I kind of like this theory because I think with Soulless guy, he was like chewing on fingers and stuff, but he was like, this world is a copy. Like, it's all a copy. We're all copies. So maybe, like, Near Apocalypse, where Jory was from, where, like, the last timeline was from, was, like, actually just, like, his last copy. He's, like, he remade medieval times, and he's, like, working back up to modern times again just to bomb it all. Like, he's...
Are you saying that this is maybe, like, the fourth Matrix?
It could be.
like, I feel like that is the implication, low-key, like, all of those things that combine to that. I think so. I think, like, this whole tweet.
It would be really funny if, like, Jory heroically sacrifices himself for this world, and, like, the Worker of Secrets is like, shit, that's, like, the 5th time he's done that. This is the 5th world I've made. Oh, God.
Yeah.
I can't lose another immortal child. Wrong kid died.
All right, we gotta go.
I wanted Jared.
We gotta go all the way back and restart the world, and so Jory's dad could get cucked again.
It's like wait, what's the thing from Spider-Man, like the canon event?
Oh, like
sure,
it has to
event.
happen.
Yeah.
Uriel getting cheated on is a current canon event.
Yeah, it's his narrative archetype.
Oh my God.
Did you, as you guys were reading, did you feel like there was a sort of deliberate misdirect about who from the past would be ending up in the future?
I spent the whole book going back and forth on. I was certain that Uriel and Adram were going to be Radriar and Osir, but I wasn't sure which one was going to be which one. So I was actually was surprised when Adram got beat to death with his wrench after hitting Uriel's kid with his red convertible, because I was like, oh, I thought he was going to be one of those two. I thought they were going to hate each other for all time. I thought this whole sacrifice thing was going to be because Uriel got cheated on.
That's incredible.
But yeah, no, I did feel like it was a
fucking
misdirect.
So vile. It echoed.
That's why
through
he's
the
also
ages.
the vile. That's why he's called the vile. Yeah, I truly believed it was Uriel and Adram were going to be Osir and the God King, for like pretty much the whole book until Adram got his life beat out of him in the rain in Boston.
Yeah, the only one that I called, I was like, well, obviously the Worker is the CEO, Mr. Galoth or Galaxy, whatever the fuck his name is.
Yeah, Mr. Galaxy, you got it.
I was like, he's definitely going to be the Worker of Secrets, and then, but like, who could have possibly have called Jory?
Jory, who does not appear narratively until, I mean, he is named
until he gets hit by a car.
He gets no dialogue until he has already died and been resurrected.
As Jory, he never gets. Oh, actually,
no, he does
gets
as a Deathless.
No, he says like father, father. He wakes up. His dad tells him to be a king, which is not a thing that, as far as I can tell, Uriel had any thoughts about prior to that point.
True. Did anyone feel like the moment that the God King revealed that he was like the Giri from the past, did anyone feel like he was like immediately kind of infantilized, or like I felt like he started speaking like a little kid, like
a little bit.
Why is the God King like it changed everything? Like he didn't.
Yeah.
He wasn't really talking like the God King anymore. He was just kind of talking like this 13-year-old kid, and I was like, he's still an immortal guy just because we revealed his backstory. He's not suddenly 13.
He was 13. So were us all, unfortunately.
Right.
In fact, he has had a lot more time as an adult than most of us get.
Yeah, but he was just starting to be like, I'm gonna get him. I'm gonna get him now. Like,
taking the more positive spin on that. The whole point of the God King, I think, was that unlike the rest of the Deathless, he was a kid when he became a Deathless, while the rest were like full adults with like full lives and stuff. And so he grew up into this, and so he way more bought into the RP of being these like pantheon of gods and stuff. And while yes, I do think the dialogue changed, I do think there was going to be kind of an inevitable switch, because at the same moment that like reveal happened that like he was that kid that got turned into a Deathless, was also when the book started really hammering it in that most of the Deathless are just guys who like just like a bunch of rich and powerful CEOs that got together and made themselves immortal. I actually really like that one line where I think the worker is talking to the God King about this, but says the rest of us, when we like are away from the people, like when we're in our sanctums, we take off the helmets and are just ourselves. You're the only one that actually like is a god, like through and through, like you believe it. Like you're the only one who actually
doing the
believes.
voice all the time.
You're doing the voice all the time. But yeah, and so while the change in dialogue style was kind of like it was like pretty extreme, I actually thought it was kind of a neat turning point where it's like you have this God King where you're essentially in genre and it's like very, very magnanimous and big and grand, and then suddenly you realize, oh, they're all just role playing, and suddenly the God King's dialogue feels like role playing, like a kid role playing. And I actually kind of like that. I thought that was a neat little shift of tone.
I agree. There's something very funny to me about Gallant and his cohort like turning the whole world into Burning Man, and then having it be like their weird like tech freak playground to like run around in like leather and furs. I have to wonder, like, did they devise the lore together?
Did they have like a sit down?
Did they have a sit down in the
session?
bunker? Wait, did this whole setting come out of their like bunker tabletop games?
Well, they were waiting for the Earth to cool down. Like after the bombing, they were just playing D&D.
I also love Gallant's character of one of his subordinates shows up and is like, "Hello, Mr. CEO. I killed one of the dudes you selected to be immortal." And he's like, "Wow, what initiative. You're promoted.
You're hired."
You know, and it used to be like that. You could just come marching up to the boss and say, "I murdered a man in my driveway." And they would promote you.
It's true. What we've lost is a nation.
Speaking of the god of being cheated on, Uriel, I want to... Uriel is just further into this theory that, at least at the time of writing this, Brandon Sanderson does not write intelligence well. Like it just had no idea what being smart in anything meant, because I already complained about the worker, where it's like he's a brilliant inventor and therefore he's some Machiavellian genius, despite the fact that like we never actually see that. But then also Uriel, I got so confused, because when we're introduced to him, there's this entire thing about him being like a brilliant statistician. He's great with numbers, but he doesn't understand people. And then later we learn that the statistics he was doing was perfectly predicting how people were going, like how humans, squishy emotional humans, were going to like bid in auctions, and like it was like perfectly predicting how people were going to act. And I was like,
Yeah,
his
character
like a weird,
is also inconsistent, because there's a moment where There's a really callous moment he has at the beginning of the book where he's like, God, my bitch wife keeps sending me the news. I can't believe she's sending me the news. I'm uninterested in the things that happen on the news. I don't care about the fact that nukes have been dropped in India, which is just a throwaway line in this book. And constantly, he says that several times, and then he's the one who has a moral objection to everything that's going on. He's like, I don't think we should do teleportation. It's like, well, you didn't seem to care about the wars that were happening just 2 scenes ago. So now
you don't understand. It would be his fault if he helped with the teleportation. That's why he cared.
Yeah. I mean, he's just supposed to be good, but then there's the line of why would I care about the war in South America?
In my current job, I work in DC. I work for this. We are very connected to the news cycle and are looking at all the stuff, national security and stuff. And so it's just reading this, I was just laughing because I'm not in the space because I'm a policy person or I'm just a comms person. But even I with the very minor amount of DOD, Department of Defense knowledge that I have, was laughing when he was standing up and this is gonna be used for war. I was like, yeah, they are already selling to Lockheed Martin. Trust you me. In the real world, they Palantir already has this. This in the real world would have not been a surprise, and I just there's way too much money in the DoD to that this wouldn't just immediately go straight to that. Like
Sophie said in the summary, how did he not already think, I'm going to sell this to governments?
Yeah, I think in the big meeting, Jared's idea is let's sell this to industry. And Adrian's idea is let's sell this to consumers, and Uriel's big rant is about how this will be inevitably used by governments and militaries, and Galanthus says that's a great idea. They'll pay the most for it. But also, Adram, I like your vibe. Let's make you immortal.
I was just gonna say I don't think he's ever also worked at a marketing department too. I was just laughing. I don't think he's worked very much in corporate America. I was just kind of giggling at this whole RP that he put on for corporate America. I was like, this is not what it's at all.
It has the feel of the 80s guy in Futurama.
Yes, that's what it feels. It feels like a media understanding of anything that's going on. Go ahead, Jack.
Which makes sense because I think the only real job, full big boy career out of college job he had before he was just a full-time author was he worked the desk at a hotel during nights. That's actually when he wrote his first books, is he just was at this desk at a hotel all night and was writing. I believe I don't think he has had a serious job before that. I think that was his first real job.
I mean,
good for him.
Presumably he's been in marketing meetings.
Oh yeah, absolutely. At this
point, or maybe he's been insulated from that.
I mean, wait, when did this book come out? What year is it right now?
2013. I think one of the things that's interesting is I think he's probably been insulated from marketing at this point, but as more and more of Sanderson, the production company, emerges, I think he is less and less insulated from that. I mean, one of the things that, again, I think is wild, there were in the advanced reader copies of Wind and Truth, his most recent novel, actually not at this point, but his big doorstopper Cosmere novel that came out last year, that book had 3 different endings. And the beta readers voted on which one they thought was their favorite.
I think he didn't go with the one they chose, though. I think he just used that data. But I thought I remember hearing that he didn't actually go with the one that was quote-unquote voted.
I don't know that far, but it is really fascinating to see that, we have fully gone from, very little influence to, fans are determining, kind of plot details, which I think is wild.
Also, detail, because I'm just thinking about the years. So this book came out in 2013. Brand Sanderson currently does own a massive LLC company that kind of runs his marketing and stuff, Dragonsteel Entertainment, but that wasn't founded until 2021.
Was he ahead of the curve in 2013 on the like tech CEO apocalypse bunker thing?
I mean, possibly. I think like that kind of trope is in the ether through science fiction, and I think it's one of those things where it's like fiction is doing this thing, and then CEOs are like, wow, I can't wait to invent the Torment Nexus, and then they start doing it in real life.
Yeah, but I feel like there was less public knowledge around like the various like New Zealand compounds that the billionaires were making.
I mean, like, it is wild how that has shifted, where it starts off as like this is a secret thing, and now like you can watch tour videos of the billionaires' apocalypse compounds on YouTube, which is nuts. I would not know that publicly. Make that known. Go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, I don't tell anybody about my bunker. But I just to clarify the Wind and Truth ending thing, what it was he tried out 3 different endings with different alpha and beta reading groups, got like feedback and responses, and then went with none of the 3. Went with like kind of like an amalgamation of different elements. And so there was no, because you said that, I was like, I feel like I would have heard about that. There was no like the fans voted for the ending of Wind and Truth, but he did test multiple endings and took their feedback into account on creating the 4th real ending.
Even still, that's really sort of fascinating.
Yeah, no, that's still fan feedback in the writing process. He didn't finish a book and then give it to beta readers. He got 3 different endings, got feedback, and then was like, okay, actually, I want to go with something different.
It also looks like that Sanderson does not have a marketing role at Dragonsteel. It looks like the chief operating officer is his wife, and then the other people on the board are friends of his who are either like editorial, marketing, fulfillment people. And then his friend Dan Wells, who's written a couple of novels with him, is vice president of narrative, which I think is a fascinating title.
And do we know if they've cracked immortality technology?
It is a good question. Honestly, with the amount of money they've made at Kickstarter, they must be only a few Kickstarters away.
They're working on it. They're like, but their motivation isn't world domination. Their motivation is make sure Brandon Sanderson can finish the Cosmere.
Is Dragonsteel a publishing company? This is kind of off track.
Yeah.
Are they a publishing company, or is he still publishing with Tor?
He still primarily publishes with Tor. He's done a bunch of the 4 secret novels that he wrote during the pandemic. So Yumi and the Nightmare Painter, Sunlit Man, Trust of the Emerald Sea, and The Frugal Wizard's Handbook to Surviving Medieval England. All of those are self-published through Dragonsteel, and like self-published is kind of a joke at this point because it is its own production company. And also all of these special editions are either from Dragonsteel or the precursor to Dragonsteel. I mean, Jack, you have the very nice leather-bound editions, which are, I believe, Dragonsteel.
But that's 8 years in the future from where we are right now.
Yes.
2013.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
Glee season 3 or season 4, sorry, is going strong.
I'm glad that that's your
right.
marker for culture.
Gay marriage is right around the corner.
Chance the Rapper's acid rap has made waves.
Oh my god.
Yeah, what else do we want to say about Infinity Blade? He did the interesting thing, which, okay, I think he did a better version of this than he did with the Lord Ruler and Mistborn. But he did sort of the villain from a previous book gets more dimension and complexity and wins. There's a whole line which I actually kind of liked about the God King winning the moral victory over Ceres. The God King, you know, he's more humanized. He gets more character. There's that whole thing where like we get his view of godhood, which I actually thought was really interesting to read. Like just get that like monologue from the villain, basically being like, yeah, like, we are better. We are faster. We have thousands of years of history. Who else would you want to be in charge? And then it's like, yeah, and I'm going to give a golden age because I don't need a sacrifice. And he's still like a despot. He kills people. We see him be, Taylor, this kind of goes into what you were saying about like how suddenly he's infantilized and is just like a hero kid trying to be a kid at the end. When at the beginning of this book, he's callously like executing his subjects for like really minor random reasons and like doesn't give a shit about people at all.
That was one of the scenes that I like where the actual comedy and intentional comedy really worked for me.
Yeah.
The God King is talking to one of his servants. He's like, you remind me of your grandfather. And he's like, sire, didn't you have my grandfather murdered? And it's like, well, yes, but I had him disemboweled. If I did not like him, I would have done it in a worse way. And it's like, that's a solid joke.
And then we get to the end of the book and the God King's making this big sacrifice because at the end of the day, he is a king and he will protect his subjects.
Yeah.
Like there is a little bit of a flip in the middle where like he cares about his subjects in this like abstract, he's a king and they're his like property under his domain way. But then on an individual level, it's like, yeah, these are ants. I don't really care.
So I want to ask a big question to the podcasters, which is, what's up with Brandon Sanderson and Kings and Rulers?
Okay, this is a big question. I think on some level there is a small child in Brandon Sanderson's brain who really, really, really wants to believe in noblesse oblige. Like, he really, really wants to believe
Explain that.
Noblesse oblige is like a historical concept where it just basically meant that the best rulers were actually kings, because why would you want the common people to rule? You want someone who's trained to do it from birth. It's a hard job. So noblesse oblige is the idea that like the best person to rule is someone who's been trained to do it, and that is always a monarch who was born to it.
But also that person or that like class of person would have this sort of internal sense of like honor and obligation to the sort of dignity of ruling their subjects.
Yes.
Very philosopher king, if you've heard that term.
Yes. I think there's just a huge part of him that really wants to believe in that, and that there are good kings in the world, which, like, you know, in fantasy, sure. But
we have to acknowledge he is a fantasy author. There is going to be a degree of like genre convention where like you're reading fantasy, it's going to be kings and rulers and stuff for the most part. Anything else would be seen as like a deviation from the like a subversion of the genre, essentially.
Well, no, not necessarily. There are tons of fantasy books that don't feature kings, but I think this is just one of the things that really fascinates him, and like there is like a very much a part of Sanderson that really wants to get into, like, wouldn't it be great if we had leaders who were like ready to take up this task for us, who already sort of exist in the world, and, you know, we're all as good a person as, say, Aragorn is like sort of the sauce for him. And like not all of them are as clear-cut and good as Aragorn. I think he's also interested in seeing like these people struggle. But fundamentally, I do think that he just really likes the idea of like, oh, there are good people in the world who are suited to the task and they will do their job.
I think that there's also just a simpler answer where like kings are fun to write. Like, I think honestly it might just be like that's his thing.
Yeah.
They have the most like agency in his fantasy worlds.
That's also consistently true.
Yeah, why he chooses the kings to always be the main character is a great question, but it's very clear that monarchy is fun for him.
I mean, I'm trying to think of books that he's written that do not feature a king as the primary protagonist, or at least one of them.
In the Cosmere, that's tough, but like his non-Cosmere books are a lot of...
Sure.
I just want to highlight... Oh, okay, well, the other question within your question is like, what's up with his naming convention too? Like, I giggle every time we come to a new book and it's some form of the God King. Like, it's just like a little bit off of like the exact same name from the last book. And I'm like, give the guy a name. he can just have a name. He doesn't need to be the God King.
I mean, this is sort of the thing about like fantasy proper noun slurry is that like you never get too far afield from, you know, like ageless, like Steel King power like god.
Yes.
It's like Taco Bell, where at a certain point it's like the same 7 ingredients just like arranged in different like form factors.
Yeah, the little short story that we're gonna do, which it's not even a short story, it's a cut chapter very clearly of Wheel of Time, of like, yeah, that all of those things are like very slurry. The One Power, the Dragon Reborn, the Word, the Weird, all these different things.
Incarnate Dark, yeah.
Yeah, Incarnate Dark. That's a good example of like, that's something that's not really explained, but is clearly like a key mechanic in one of the Infinity
black
Blade
holes.
games.
Yeah.
The
It's
naming
black hole,
stuff
yeah.
is just so goofy because it's like, where in history has like maybe I don't know, but like kings in his like real kings in history have names.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just fantasy where they're called the God King. Like I don't think any
The
king in
King.
history has just been called
There
the
was
God
there was
King.
the Sun King, Louis the Fifth.
Okay, but you're about to say his name.
Yeah, well, the God King is named Radriar, and before that, Jori.
Yeah, the God King does have a name. I mean, I'm actually really curious. I don't know. Fans of the show, write in if you actually know history. What did people refer to the king of their time as? Like, did a peasant in France say, "Oh, King Louis," or did they say the king?
A peasant was probably more likely to say the king, depending on the era. The only sort of history of the era that I know well is sort of like early modern England. And in early modern England, you would say the queen or the king. If you were a Londoner, you were much more likely to refer to the king by name. There were often like common and derogatory nicknames for the king and queen, particularly
That's
King.
fun.
Particularly King James was often referred to as Queen James, because everyone in London was like, God, I cannot believe we have a gay dude on the throne. It's wild. And like they didn't care, because they were basically like, well, yeah, all lust is sinful. So like, who he likes dudes, whatever. He's also really into witches. This is just like his thing, I guess.
And also think about the late Queen Elizabeth. Everyone in the world, you would just say the queen. Like,
Yeah.
people wanted to refer to the Queen of England, they just said the queen.
To me,
Yeah.
she was Lizzie.
Like the God King. Who's it? What's he called in the Lord Ruler?
Yeah.
To me, that's goofy. That's really
I
goofy.
agree.
That's
I
not
agree.
natural. Your name is Ruler. You're the Lord
Well, I mean, like,
Ruler.
this is true of like real monarchs too, of like the fact that we all have to be like, all right, King Charles, we respect your pronouns of we and one. That's definitely not weird.
Fair enough.
Like, that's the thing of like any fantasy shit, like the British royal family is doing it in a much more embarrassing way.
You know what? I'm coming around on it. I think we talked about it, and I'm like, you know what? I accept it. They're the God King, I guess.
You are correct that it's goofy, but it is historically accurate goofy.
Is Brandon Sanderson interested in ruling and leadership, or does that just come with the territory of the characters that he chooses to focus on?
No, I would say he's largely interested in the aesthetics of it, but he doesn't actually care about the specifics of it. Because, like,
I would say that the Way of Kings is very interested in leadership, but I wouldn't say his work as a whole is necessarily diving into. Like, I think certain books are very interested in leadership.
I fully agree that the Way of Kings is very interested in leadership and what makes a good leader, but we very rarely in those books actually see sort of the process of leading. We will often just get we will get sort of like this montage scene that we got in this book where Kaladin praises the men, or Dalinar does a thing that inspires his troops or something like that. But it's not sort of like, all right, let's sit down and decide a tax plan, or we will see a maneuver shorthanded, but we don't actually see a lot of the training for the maneuver. Although we do see a decent amount of that in Kaladin's arc in The Way of Kings.
I would argue that there's a decent amount of that, which is like there's a concern for like you're writing a book and he's clearly writing an action fantasy book. And so there's a degree to which like why would you have conversations about tax policy, like get to the fights? That's like the cool part.
Yeah.
Versus a book that's a very different genre, like, you know, The Traitor Baru Cormorant, where the tax policy is the most dramatic, coolest thing to read about, where it's like that is the drama and the cool stuff going on.
Yeah, though also that book has like I think what's fun and cool and interesting about that book is so much of it is conversations and confrontations where about influence and power and sort of Baru going to someone and them being like, why should I trust you? Why should I listen to you? Here's, you know, the position that I'm in and the position that like allying with you would put me in. And it's sort of very interested in sort of struggles and exchanges of power and influence and currency and the sort of like building of a network of power and influence at a kind of granular level with a lot of kind of like make or break scenes and conversations where like the outcome really hinges on like how well can Baru sort of like thread the needle that's put in front of her. And I you know, this is a video game tie-in novella, but like, you know, there's a rebellion here that's kind of background. Like Cyrus shows up, he's meant to lead it because Issa has sort of done the like Bene Gesserit thing of like seeding the world with myths about him that he can step into. Part of the whole thing of it is like he doesn't know how to lead, but his dark self does because his dark self is also the Vile. And the more time he spends like leading the rebellion, the more sort of fuel for that fire in him happens. But we really don't see any sort of one crucial conversation or important moment or set of important moments to him leading the rebellion. It's more that's more stuff sort of like accumulating in the background. Is like we're told a few different times, a few different ways, like he's doing a good job of leadership and the people like and respect him.
I think I have an answer to your question, kind of to Jack's point and to your point, Sophie. The answer to your question, like, is he interested in leadership and kind of listening to Jack talk? And I think what Sanderson is interested in is making the coolest fight scene possible, I would say. And so the backdrop of making a really cool fight scene, I feel like in his mind is often putting the king up there. And I feel like that's what he's actually interested in is like, how can I design the coolest fight scene? And it's not really about leadership. Leadership just obviously makes really cool stakes in a fight. And I think that's what he cares about.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. The tower in Way of Kings, like the leadership aspect there is because when you have the leader give a crazy inspiring speech and then charge down the hill with everybody, that makes the fight scene really fucking cool.
It is much cooler
Absolutely.
when it is not just some guy, but it's your king who has the big anime sword and the power armor
Yes.
in the Way of Kings.
That's what Sanderson's interested in. I think that we've come around to that, and that's really cool. I wouldn't have thought of that before listening to your question and listening to Jack talk and all your points and stuff.
And to your
So how
your
do we
point
feel
further,
about the fight scenes here?
one of them is okay.
Okay.
Yeah, he didn't do what he's good at.
No, like, there's not a lot of interesting fight scenes in this book, which is kind of wild. The duel at the end is kind of boring because it's mostly just Raedriar wins and then teleports a USB stick.
Raedriar wins as Cyrus like sweats on a boat
Yes.
watching the video feed of it.
The only fight
and
scene
like
that I
holding
think...
his hand, holding his wrist.
The
Like,
only fight scene that I think
got
is
the
kind of
Strangelove
good
hand.
is the one where he kills all of his servants. And that scene is fraught for different reasons, where it's just like... I don't love that all these characters are described as hook-nosed, Sanderson, and then also the way that they're dealt with at the end is they are all gassed to death, which is a wild choice.
Yeah.
And the one devoted who's sitting there being like, why do you have a button to gas all of our rooms? And the God King's just like, ugh, this idiot. And like the other devoted's just like, dude, quiet. Like, come on.
This fucking guy.
The other guy's just like, this guy doesn't get it. Don't worry about it.
Sorry, he's new.
Oh my god.
Oh, wait, I want to complain about the Worker of Secrets more. The whole ending also includes this bit where, like, the Worker of Secrets, not only is he some kind of, they keep telling us, is some kind of crazy Machiavellian genius, he can finish the God King's sentences, he makes all this stuff, but he also is, because he's smart, the best swordsman of everybody. Yes. And I just kept thinking, like, no, what? This is the crazy tech CEO that already believes he's a god. He's not spending his like 3-4 whatever thousand years practicing with the blade.
You don't think Neil Stephenson and Jeff Bezos go a few rounds now and then?
I actually don't. I think they go a few rounds with some sycophants who they pretend they're better at, and then just are like, "Wow, I'm so great. Let me just not worry about it."
I mean, Mark Zuckerberg had that whole MMA period. Like,
he's still in it.
If they were actually concerned with actually being good at these things, Elon Musk wouldn't be paying someone else to play video games for him. He would just like actually practice the video game and be good at it.
You know what? That's a fair point.
So true. Way too much money to actually be competent.
At one point when Cyrus and the God King are sort of talking about who should get the Infinity Blade, who should go confront the Worker, the God King is like, I've actually like sparred with the God King a few times, so it should probably be me. Like, and I think like reading that, you're like, I don't know when that would have happened, and then kind of knowing everything we know by the end, I feel like the implication is a little bit like hanging out in the bunker, you know, they got the kendo equipment on. Like, it's a lot of time to kill while you wait for the like half-life, you know, to cycle out.
Them sparring they were just doing Wii Sports fencing.
God damn it, I was about to make the same joke. Of just fire up Wii Sports Resort. They do the fencing and then cool down with some island flyover.
Yeah, we've played a lot of Guilty Gear. The Worker's a Bridget main, so
I was actually going to say, as we've established that Cyrus is secretly trans, that he's the Bridget main, whatever like free character he was.
Oh my god. There's like a part in the middle. So in the final fight scene, it goes kind of back and forth between what's happening in the fight scene between the Worker and the God King, and then like Sirius, like Sophie said, like hand shaking, like, should I do it? Oh god. And like his internal monologue. Can we just talk about his internal monologue? Because it's fucking crazy. Where he's like,
go for it.
He's a tyrant, a murderer, but he's an honest one. I was like, what are we doing right now?
He's doing the Lord Ruler thing again. He can't have a God King he doesn't make sympathetic. Mm-hmm. Like it was like the end of Mistborn, where they spent the whole book being like the Lord Ruler had his faults, but he was ultimately a good man.
Yeah, those are his beliefs, and I have to respect them.
To me, that was like on par with like Uriel randomly finding a wrench and starting to like beat someone to death. I was like, what? What?
He didn't. No. What was the line? What was the line? He didn't understand people, but they did die really easily.
It was something like that.
Or no, it's like he expected killing a man to be harder, but it was actually really easy.
Yeah.
That was like the line.
It was like it took him like the line was like it took him 6 like hits to open up his skull, and I was like, what book am I reading right now? We were just at work. This was an office. Like, what are we talking about? Why are we like busting some guy's skull open right now?
You were on your way to pick up the God King from hockey practice. Like,
God, this book is
Why
so
are
nuts.
we murdering?
Taylor, to your point, his internal monologue of like, God, do I betray him? That feels so video gamey to me, of like a character saying like a line before you get presented with the this is an important choice. Press A to betray the God King, or press B to stay your hand.
The God King will remember this.
Yeah, exactly. It feels very like that. The other thing that I think is sort of interesting is there's a moment moment pretty early on where Cyrus starts to cede power to the Dark Self. And at that point, the Dark Self is not really operating as like an evil thing he must struggle with. He's ceding power to it as a superpower. And I think that's really interesting that like there is some part of Sanderson that always has a maneuver of let me turn this character trait or thing I've developed into a superpower for one of my characters. And I don't know, I think that's something we will probably see return throughout his work.
It's interesting to me that there's no like dialogue with the Dark Self.
No.
There's a lot of interesting stuff that is set up here potentially. Like, one of the things that we get is that, like, the God King, after he escapes from the prison where he and Cyrus were, like, killing each other back and forth, he, like, deliberately basically compartmentalizes that memory so that he doesn't go cuckoo bananas Looney Tunes from the, like, pain of being murdered and resurrected over and over. And that, like, that's just a thing that he does sometimes as a way of, like, organizing his mind for, like, optimal survival over the, like, millennia that he's been alive. And I think that's a really interesting concept. I don't think we see it play out in any kind of, like, meaningful psychological way in his character. It's kind of just a, like, a house cleaning maneuver to be like, he's fine. Don't worry about him, he's fine. And
Yeah.
I mean, interestingly, like, Cyrus doesn't have access to that same way of, like, organizing his mind, but he's also kind of fine.
Mm-hmm.
The Dark Self stuff over the course of the book kind of builds and builds to that one moment of, like, betrayal. And it sort of, like, threatens to boil over at a few points, but it doesn't end up being super consequential. It does sort of steer some of, like, what Cyrus does and why he does it. Like, the raid to secure the rebirthing chamber and the, like, deathlessification technology, like, is sort of driven by the Dark Self. But outside of Cyrus being like, my Dark Self, like, it makes me powerful, but at what cost? Like, there's just not a lot of sort of, like, there's not that much of a meal made out of either of these sort of forms of immortality or, like, wrestling with self.
Yeah.
Since my last appearance on this show, I watched all of the Interview with the Vampire TV show.
Great show. Oh my god.
Great show, really good show. And I think that show is really interested in, like, what does immortality, like, do to you emotionally in your relationship?
And also, what if you had a gay evil boyfriend who was your dark
What
self?
if you had a gay evil boyfriend, and what if the worst thing in the world for these immortal beings was to be alone? That,
Yeah.
like, that was, like, more painful than anything to them, and so they will, like, do all kinds of horrible things to each other to not have to be alone. And I think one of the things that show does really well is, like, show all of the different psychologies that come out of living forever, and also, like, the ways that way of living actually, like, heightens all of your experiences of emotions rather than, like, dulling them, because sadness is layered with all these other experiences of sadness, and joy is layered with all these other experiences of joy. And so, like, everything is operatic to you, which I think is, like, very fun and compelling and like ties in well with, like, good soap opera,
Mhm.
which is, like, what that show is doing. And I wish Brandon would kind of, like, let himself off the chain a little more and sort of play a little more with, like, you know, these two guys, Cyrus and Radriar, or Radriar and the Worker, have been kind of, like, you know, locked in these, like, complicated, messy, cyclical relationships for hundreds and thousands of years. What does that mean? Like, they're coworkers essentially at this point. Or, like, you know, a, like, horrible immortal polycule. But he can't quite step outside of the sort of, like, genre conventions and constraints that he puts on himself enough to kind of, like, explore that space, I think. But
Yeah.
he's gesturing at it, and I wish he would sort of follow those gestures.
I think if those sort of things were followed through on, this would be just straight up a good book. Whereas right now, it's comfortably, this is kind of fun to read, but is, like, most assuredly trash.
Yeah.
And I do kind of wish there was the good book version of this, because like truly there is nothing more delightful to me than finding a licensed book and then finding out it's actually good. Like, shockingly good, the first Guild Wars 2 novelization, really quite good, unbelievably good for what it is. It's just a lot of stuff like that where it's like I love encountering that. The Myst novelization from like 2001, I want to say. That one's really good, weirdly.
The novelization of the movie. Oh no, not the Thomas Jane movie, The Myst.
No. The novelization of the video game Myst with a Y.
Got it. Does it have a guy yelling at you in it?
I believe it does. Yes. Also, like the Russell Stover novels. Like, goddamn, his Revenge of the Sith novelization, pretty good. Okay, do we have any more thoughts on Infinity Blade that we definitely want to hit? Because I've gotten all of mine.
I think I've hit everything I wanted to talk about, other than just that opening scene was pretty brutal for Sanderson, and I actually really liked it. Just them killing each other back and forth, but not for any reason, just because they hated each other so much, and they would kill one of them would kill the other, and then they'd wake back up, and he'd kill him back, and just back and forth.
It is fun that they just beat the shit out of each other. I was like, oh, is this going to be the entire book?
When it opened, I thought it was Ossir kept getting killed because that was how they basically kept him imprisoned. And then it became clear, no, him and the God King are just both trapped here. And they hate each other so much that they just keep killing each other. There's no actual purpose to it. They just hate each other.
Okay.
They reminded me of two cats.
Yeah.
Oh god, now I want the Catboy version of this novel. That'd be great.
I never
Warrior
allowed
Cats,
myself to be
Infinity
a
Blade.
cat boy. I was training with the sword from a young age.
Okay, on that note, let's talk briefly about River of Souls, which I think is going to be like a 3-minute conversation at most.
I, ended up on the internet looking up about this a little bit. So River of Souls is essentially a bunch of cut content. I think it's a couple it's meant to be like a couple chapters or a couple interludes that were intended to be in Memory of Light, the final Wheel of Time book, and Brandon Sanderson, sort of at the advice of various editors and based on a bunch of stuff, decided to cut it. What happened was then there was a author, Sean something?
Speakman.
Yeah, Sean Speakman was in medical debt because of a medical diagnosis.
He had Hodgkin's lymphoma, and then he survived treatment, but he was $200,000 in debt.
Yeah, and so another fantasy author, Terry Brooks, basically offered to contribute to a short story collection or sell a short story in an attempt to build medical funds, and convinced a bunch of other authors to do it. And that's how the Unfettered anthology came out, which I believe the whole premise of Unfettered is it's all essentially cut content from other fantasy books, like deleted scenes from a collection of popular fantasy books. And so Brandon Sanderson contributed these cut scenes from Wheel of Time. The idea is, if any of you have read or remember our summary, at the end of Wheel of Time during the last battle, Demon Dread, who for most of the series had been absent and just kind of vaguely off doing something, these scenes were meant to allude and give us a little window into what until the end of Memory of Light, where he shows up with a massive army. It was meant to kind of allude to the fact of what he was doing with this time, what he was doing in Shara, why he was there, what he was up to. So it was I don't know, what was it, 50 pages less? I think it was 50 pages on the Books app, which means in real physical pages, it's even shorter than that.
It's basically nothing. It's real short.
So just jumping kind of straight into the summary, the story follows a man named Bao as he attempts to complete a prophecy and become the Weird or Dragon Slayer of the Sharan people. Before he descends into the canyon and follows the River of Souls, he is met by friends, mentors, and allies. He thinks about the conflict between his newfound genuine feelings for these people and the pragmatic and cruel reasons he had come here at all. He descends into the canyon, following the river to the cave at the end where he uses the one power and a sword to defeat a shadow spawn monster. Having defeated it, he claims the treasure it protected, a Tiangriel, the second most powerful in the world. He returns to his people and claims his spot as Weird, prophesized killer of the dragon. He thinks about how he originally only used the prophecy as a means to an end, but along the way began to believe in it. Bao is then revealed at the end to be Demon Dread the whole time, now ready to lead the army of Sharans to the final battle. So this was basically going to be a collection of scenes, like in little interludes or maybe a chapter, to essentially foreshadow like what has Demon Dread been up to this whole time. And part of the reason it was cut is because Robert Jordan, in all of his writing and all of his notes, basically repeatedly was saying, yeah, nothing super important that is going to show up on screen going on in Shara. Like it's like he had no intent to ever show us what was going on over there. Meanwhile, Brandon Sanderson comes in and he says, I think in a quote where he's like, yeah, there's a whole nother Wheel of Time worth of stuff happening over there, but we just don't have time to go into it. And part of the reason he cut it was like, I don't want to in the very last book imply there's this whole other story here that we're just not going to be able to go into. Like if this was in book 8 or 9, it might have been more appropriate, but
sure.
He basically decided for the last
that's
book.
That's what the editor said.
Yeah,
that's
the
what
editor,
his wife said.
Robert Jordan's wife.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't shock me. And like this, while reading it, it's like, oh, this is clearly a chapter that did not make it in. And this is all that I really have to say about it. It's also like, I think it's also works fine in Wheel of Time, because like in Wheel of Time you can just introduce a new villain without any setup, and like largely that fits in with the rest of that, how that series operates, of just like, oh, here's Demon Dread and he's here with an army and he's one of the Forsaken, and it's like, all right, yeah, I remember there being 13 of those dudes. This dude can show up in A Memory of Light. And then he gets stabbed to death by one of our heroes. And, like, the other thing about Wheel of Time is, like, characters that are already dead can come back, like, 12 times. Like, he fights Ishmael, like, 4 or 5 times, and he, like, changes his name, like, 5 times. Nothing to do with the whale. Yeah. I wish he did.
I thought this short chapter was pretty interesting. Honestly, if this was a chapter in Wheel of Time, it might have been one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it's just kind of interesting. I'm a sucker for the trope of there's a guy that like is fully like messing with a group of people with bad intentions and then slowly starts to believe, because the whole thing is he's essentially taking advantage of this cultural prophecy to get what he wants, but then it's implied through conversations that like he's had a whole adventure, like it took place over 2 years. The short story didn't take place over 2 years, but like what Demon Dread was doing took place over 2 years, and like he was free. He led a slave rebellion. He installed new rulers. He made friends and got companions. And some of this book is dedicated to his internal monologue where he's like, man, like I'm supposed to be this being of pure hate, but for some reason I'm starting to get feelings for these people. And I'm kind of a sucker for that, like, he showed up for super pragmatic evil reasons, and then he couldn't help but sort of start to believe in the prophecy himself. And then it kind of makes the whole him versus Rand a little more interesting, because he was basically the Rand of his own story over here, and he's just...
I mean, kind of, but there's also the problem that, like, he shows up in A Memory of Light, and I'm like, I'm actually super evil now. And it's like, well... like, sure, there's a little bit of backfilling being done, but it doesn't actually reflect in, like, the Memory of Light chapters. He's just like, I am a dude who is so evil and so good at sword fighting. So, I mean, like, on its own, it kind of works, but...
I think that's it. Is like, on its own, I was just like, this is, like, a neat chapter. I'm a sucker for this trope, and theoretically, if it was in the book, maybe then Demon Dread would have been more developed in Memory of Light, but I don't know. I don't think that book needed to be any longer than it was.
God, no.
Yeah, the only thing that I thought was like that on mine it was like 10 pages, and knowing how Wheel of Time is written and how long these chapters are, like there had to be way more.
Yeah.
Or like this was cut pretty early in the writing process and he didn't end up writing more.
Yeah, honestly, I think the story about how this collection came to be is much more interesting than this story in it, of just like a bunch of authors being like, hey, let's help out our friend who is very ill. There are sequels to Unfettered. There's Unfettered Volume 2 and 3 that have been used for similar things in the community, I believe. There's an author whose son was injured very horribly in a longboarding accident, which I don't mean to laugh there. It's just like, it's a very white thing to happen. That was used to pay for his medical expenses while he was recovering, and that has continued throughout volumes 2 and 3, although I can't really seem to find who the money went to for volumes 2 and 3, but it's a cool thing. I mean, I wish we lived in a world where you didn't have to know a bunch of famous authors to get medical care, but also, like, in this world, this is a sweet thing to do.
We've referenced the idea of the pickle jar a few times in different episodes. And for any viewer that doesn't remember, or listener that doesn't remember or didn't listen to that episode, it's this idea of, I think it was Ursula K. Le Guin had this like little bit of world building she really loved, but couldn't include because it just wasn't helping the story. But it was just a part of the world she knew exist, and she, like, that was important to her. And we've talked about how Brandon Sanderson can't have the pickle jar or pickle barrel. He has to explain everything. He has to like detail it. And I think this chapter is actually kind of a interesting development of him letting himself have the pickle barrel, because I remember one of the like little interviews he did about this, the short story where he's explaining why he cut it. He had this line where he's like, it's technically not like the story that happened. He's like, the world building is not technically canon, but to me it is. To me, there was this whole story that happened, this whole thing that happened over here, even though in the actual finished text, it doesn't. It's not real.
Yes. For the record, the quote is, if you could make a change to anything you've written over the years, what would it be? Ursula Le Guin. In The Dispossessed, I would mention the communal pickle barrels at street corners in the big towns were stocked by whoever in the community has made or kept more pickles than they need. I knew about the free pickles all along, but I could never fit them into the book. Which is truly one of the greatest sentences ever spoken.
I love that. As someone who runs D&D or other tabletop RPGs for my friends and does a lot of world building for it, I really appreciate it. I want to talk about the history of the first necromancer, despite the fact that it has nothing to do with any of the adventures going on right now, but I know it's there and I think about it a lot.
Taylor, you had something else.
I mean,
or go ahead.
My something else was, Sophie, tell us about some good books you've read recently, and tell us about if you've been writing anything. Like, that's so we can maybe pivot there, but it looked like maybe you wanted to add something, but I think we should pivot there in our last 15 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the last thing I was going to say is, like, I think both in a positive and negative way, these Infinity Blade novellas do not feel like there is any like lore to this world or world building that is not like contained within the games and the novellas. Like, it feels like it's all here, and I think that's kind of a bummer, because the world just feels like it really does not exist beyond the sort of bounds of the story that's being told.
Mm-hmm.
And also there is something a little bit refreshing in the restraint of, like, there isn't some, like, sometimes you read fantasy and you can tell that there's a lore Bible somewhere, and that the author is like going out of their way to sort of like tie things back into making this world feel large and expansive, but in a way that just sort of makes it feel like it's not expansive in a way that kind of like stimulates the imagination. It's just expansive in the way of like, oh, okay, I guess you like spent a bunch of hours figuring a bunch of stuff out. Like, that's fantastic. So I don't know. For better and worse, this feels like a very like tidy world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's nothing beyond the bounds of the pages. And I think that's a common complaint about Sanderson that I have heard he gets better at as he goes along, but I don't know. We'll see. But yes, what have you been reading that's good?
Give us some recs.
That's good. A bunch of my friends have had books come out, which is really exciting. So I am almost done with Changeover by Giri Nathan, who is just about like the best living tennis writer and wrote a book about Carlos Alcaraz and Yannick Sinner, who are kind of trading off being number one in the world in men's tennis, who are both very young, incredibly talented, but in very different ways. One of them is this chameleon sort of genius of finesse who can just like learn how to play on grass courts over the course of like 25 hours playing on grass courts. And the other is this incredibly like disciplined, focused, just like, you know, paragon of like technique and restraint. And they have come to dominate a new era of men's tennis now that the big three of Nadal, Djokovic, and Federer have kind of cycled out.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are a Brandon Sanderson fan and you are interested in like the rise of young men to greatness and rivalry, and are interested
if you enjoyed the film Challengers,
into a real world sport that is kind of about like dueling. And, you know, if you are an Infinity Blade fan and are into the same people dueling over and over through the ages, that can be a good one.
Is it nonfiction?
It's nonfiction, yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought.
My friend Melissa Lozada-Oliva just put out a collection of short stories called Beyond All Reasonable Doubt, Jesus is Alive, that are weird and nasty and funny and traffic in night logic and sort of high strangeness. And there's a story in there that's one of my favorites that she's written about moving in a like disgraced musician who like moves into a punk house to kind of reset and recuperate, and it's just like a nightmare, and there's like a hole in the floor that both like seems to keep moving and keep growing, and there are like boyfriends that are alluded to but never seen, and like a variable number of like weird small dogs living in the house. There's just this like constant sense of like both unease and like the comedy of horror, and it sort of throttles between tones really well. What else have I read? I read Rejection by the like very viral short story collection. I kind of hated it. As far as writing goes, I've been doing a horror reading series. I've been co-hosting it called Horrid here in Brooklyn and writing work for that. So I wrote a short story about a fuckboys who live in an apartment together, and the apartment eats the women that they bring home through a dumbwaiter.
That's fucking fun.
Yeah. And I have a longer story that I'm trying to find a home for called Rules for Vampires. That's about a woman who is obsessed with the idea of being a vampire, who is a like compulsive liar, and who is obsessed with a woman at her gym and ropes her into sort of playing out her vampire fantasy with her.
That is very fun.
I also wrote for a board game called Hot Streak by CMYK and John Perry that is available now, in which you bet on mascot races. I got to write lore and backstories for the mascots, and then a like D100 chart of fates for the players that you can consult at the end of the game to see what happened to you based on how much money you won, which was a lot of fun to work on and a lot of fun to play. Oh, and I read The West Passage and
Very
I read
good.
ASL, both of which I really, really liked and kind of like slot into childhood nerd culture in different ways. West Passage being kind of a like weird dark take on Redwall, and ASL examining trans women in IRC chat in the 90s.
I have not read ASL, but I'm going to add it to my list. But I did read The West Passage on you bringing it up in the Range Touch Discord, and I was like, oh, yeah, I love this. I love this so much, actually.
Yeah. If you want fantasy that is about as far from Brandon Sanderson as the genre can stretch, West Passage might be a good one to check out.
Yes. All right.
Nice.
With those recommendations, do we briefly want to do our rankings and then wrap up?
Sure. Yeah, let's do it.
This is weirdly high for me.
Oh my god.
I don't like here. It's still completely in the middle of the pack, but I think I had more fun reading this than I did Alloy of Law. Now, this comes with the caveat. I don't think this is a good book. This is not ranking by which book I think is best. This is purely by enjoyment of reading. So I have it above Alloy of Law and above the Arithmetus, but below everything else that we've read this year, which would be, I guess the only thing that would be higher is Emperor's Soul. But it's completely in the middle of the pack. I have it below Way of Kings, but above Alloy of Law for me. For y'all?
I'm putting this below Infinity Blade Awakening.
Really? Okay. That's fair.
I just didn't understand. I didn't understand most of it.
I was just bored by Infinity Blade Awakening, but this one I actually had like fun with, mostly because it was goofy.
Yeah,
that's mostly it. It was just so silly. It's below.
You do learn that Brandon Sanderson does know the word dominatrix.
It's true.
That's insane.
I think it's above all the Wheel of Time books we read. I feel bad about putting it above Alloy of Law, but I might be putting it above Alloy of Law.
That's fair.
I think the problem with ranking Alloy of Law is because I actually genuinely like Era 2, like the books that come after it.
Mm-hmm.
And so Alloy of Law is being supported by the fact that it's the intro into a series I broadly like.
Yeah.
Even though it by itself is not very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think if I'm being honest and like really isolating just like enjoyment of Alloy of Law, I think I like this book better. But I think it's also not a very good book, like Graham said. It's just so funny and fun to read.
Next month we're reading Steelheart.
Yes, this is...
Oh, we're up to Steelheart.
I don't know anything about Steelheart.
Well, I'm interested in this because Sanderson has been doing stuff dancing around superhero fiction for years now, and now we get to see him do an actual superhero book.
Oh.
So
okay, so non-Cosmere.
You were saying something, Chuck?
I was just gonna say I think I'm very interested in what Sanderson doing superhero looks like.
Yeah, I'm conflicted. As someone who desperately, deeply loves Superman, I do not care for when people do what if Superman was evil without doing something sort of more interesting, and that I have mixed feelings on Garth Ennis's The Boys, but I think that it'll be interesting to see Sanderson do a what if Superman was evil book, because I believe that is the premise based on solely the back of the book. So we'll see.
All right. That's exciting.
Yeah. But thank you all so much for listening to us go to another realm through this weird world of Infinity Blade. Sophie, thank you so much for joining us once again.
Oh, my total pleasure. It was a delight to be back on the show, to remember the mustard, and to just really get into what if a kid was weird.
What if a kid was hit by a
Beautiful.
car on his way back from hockey practice?
What if you were hit by a car on your way back from hockey practice so hard that you became a TTRPG character?
And you fully believed in the noble savage. All right.
Sure.
On that note, we'll end off there. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. We'll be back next month with Steelheart. Until then, grab a book and hit the beach.
Grab a book and hit the beach.
Grab a book and hit the beach.
What she said.
Beautiful.
What she said.
All right.
Okay.
A Grain of Sanderson is created by Graham Gillman, Taylor Lane, and Jack McLaughlan. I edit and produce the show. Our logo is by our very talented friend Ven Busby. Our theme music is Goodnight Kiss by Too Mellow off the album Midnight Broadcasts. You can find their work at twomellow.net, that's the number 2, MELLO, and twomellow at bandcamp.com. If you'd like to support the Beachcombers further, you can do that in the following ways. First, tell your friends about this podcast. Sharing the pod in a Discord, writing a thoughtful post on social media, or otherwise telling your friends really helps us out. You can follow us on social media, Taylor works very hard on our Instagram, or buy a book from our bookshop, of which we see a small cut. Finally, if you'd like to contribute to us most directly, we have a Patreon. Those links are in the episode description. Questions, critiques, or encouragement? Please write us an email at agrainofsanderson@gmail.com, or join our Discord. A link is available in our show notes. Thank you so much for listening. And again on 22. Beautiful. Okay.
Crisp claps.
Nice.
I still haven't figured out why my camera sometimes does this, where it's just like I don't know why it does. It does this every once in a while, where it just splits my screen weirdly.
Just pet your own head in a weird way.
Well, I can't.
It's to compartmentalize your personality so that you don't infect yourself with
There we go.
the pain of resurrection.
Oh God.
Can I admit a dark secret? I actually found myself enjoying myself.
From your dark self?
From my dark self, the one over here. Hold on. I actually found that's gonna mess up the audio. I actually found myself enjoying myself while reading Infinity Blade 2. I don't think it was a good book, but I think I was like having fun.
I'm fully in the same camp. I don't think this was a good book either, but like I genuinely had a lot of fun reading it. Like truly nothing in the world is funnier to me than the sentence Sophie highlighted of an ancient name of Jared.
Jared.
I was telling Taylor last night that like it was so like this book, and we'll go into more detail when we hit the summary, but this book is such a hot start in the middle of like clearly so much has happened since the last book, and it's like weird and different, and it doesn't explain what was going on before, and he never goes back and really explains what happened. And frankly, it was kind of refreshing from a Sanderson book to just be like, hey, shit's happening, and you don't need to know the details. You don't need to know why. Any of this.
We haven't introed.
We have not introed. Let's go ahead and get started. I will cut that all seamlessly in, and which by I mean I'll leave it at the end.
Our glorious producer.
I read the John le Carré novel that his son wrote, Karla's Choice by Nick Harkaway.
What did you think of that one? Because I read one of his that, and I was broadly positive on it.
Which have you read?
I'm trying to remember which of the ones that I read, because he's written like 3 at this point.
Like novels or like le Carré novels?
I think it's le Carré novels. Let me see.
Okay, so
I read
I
Angelmaker.
love All My Little Guys. Okay.
I don't know if
was
he
that
published...
a spy book?
It's a spy novel, but I can't remember if he published this as a le Carré novel or if it was just, this is a spy thriller from John le Carré's son.
Yeah. So this is like very explicitly a John le Carré novel. It like says it on the cover, and it's a George Smiley novel set between The Spy Who Came In From the Cold and Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. And so there's this like big ensemble cast of different members of the like British, Secret Intelligence Service, who are all like wonderful, like nasty little bitchy freaks, like squabbling over territory, and they all have their own little like predilections.
They're all the worst, and I love them.
They're all the worst. That part I really enjoy because you get introduced to most of those characters in Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy as kind of the bottom has fallen out. There's like a mole in the intelligence service, Control, who is like the head of the intelligence service, has like been forced out after this huge failure in the field. And so in that book, you're kind of watching everyone like eat each other, and you're seeing like the end of an era. And this book sort of takes place like in that era, but you are sort of like seeing the seeds of rot that are sort of planted and starting to sort of sprout. And you have some, dramatic irony about the tragedy of like knowing who the mole is and knowing all these different characters' fates, and sort of seeing the ways that like the compromises to their souls that they've made, the big one being the death of Alec Lamus and Spy Who Came In From the Cold, it kind of like haunts them, and each of them have a kind of different reaction to it. I I really enjoyed reading it, but it definitely felt constrained by needing to fit within the world of Le Carré. And I think one of the things I love about Le Carré is that he really pushed himself, like, stylistically in content from book to book. He's very comfortable letting the reader sit in a lot of, like, uncertainty and confusion and ambiguity for long stretches at a time, and to sort of, like, lay out a bunch of pieces that don't seem to connect to each other except for maybe thematically through, like, long stretches of the book.
Oftentimes within the same trilogy. Like, Taylor Soldier Spy is a very different book from The Honorable Schoolboy.
Yes, which is very different than Smiley's People.
Yeah.
You know, Tinker Tailor is a ensemble intrigue thriller, and The Honorable Schoolboy is kind of a more, like, Graham Greene, kind of, like, globe-trotting spy in the field thriller, and Smiley's People is, like, almost a little, like bourgeois drama.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost kind of like his Remains of the Day, or, you know, his Tehanu, if you want to go more into the, like, genre space. Karla's Choice, I think, is just, like, it's a spy thriller. It's, like, a tidier novel. There's less stylistic experimentation. The narrative kind of, like, moves steadily, linearly, and it feels like a Le Carré, but it doesn't necessarily have that, like, extra je ne sais quoi that I think is really kind of, like, what I get out of Le Carré at its best. What did you think?
What did I think of?
Did you read Karla's Choice?
No, I have not read Carla's Choice. The book I have read by him is Angelmaker, which is, I remember being good, but I read in 2014 when I had less developed taste, so it comes with that caveat. But I remember it being a fun steampunk Cold War novel where it's a spy thriller about trying to stop a Cold War era doomsday weapon that's also kind of steampunk. I remember it being quite good, but again, I was younger.